It was a calm morning in the United States, but deep inside a cave, something was about to spiral out of control. 4 experienced explorers stepped into the darkness, searching for a passage no one had ever explored before. If you've been following the channel, you already know how unpredictable these hidden places can be. It didn't take long before things went wrong. Rocks came crashing down, blocking every single escape route, and 3 women found themselves trapped in a space so tight they could barely move. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the story to understand what really happened and, most importantly, how it all came to an end. May 5th, 1997. The sun was barely rising over Arnold Hollow Cave, but 4 explorers were already gearing up for their next adventure. Around 9 in the morning, Dell Lancaster, her sister Diane, the family's close friend Phyllis Nelson, and the cave's owner John Nelson switched on their headlamps and stepped into the dark. Not far from the entrance was a narrow passage that had always left John wondering. He believed that just beyond that squeeze was a massive chamber full of formations no one had ever seen. For him, this could be the day he finally uncovered what was hidden beyond that tight crawl. When they reached the critical point, the passage shrank until it was basically a crawl space, just big enough to push through with effort. Dell went first, followed by Diane, and then Phyllis, each of them squeezing through the tight gap. John stayed back at the entrance, watching. As the owner, he'd fought his way through that squeeze plenty of times before, but it was always a struggle because of his size. Aside from the squeeze itself, private caves like this one carry their own unique dangers compared to public caves. Unlike state-managed caves that are reinforced, marked with trails, and come with warnings about known hazards, private caves can have unstable passages, loose rock, and routes that shift over time due to erosion or water seeping through. Even small changes made by a property owner, no matter how well-intentioned, can throw the cave's balance off in unexpected ways. There are well-documented cases, both in the US and in some limestone caves in France, where minor changes triggered collapses or made tight spaces even more dangerous, catching explorers completely off guard. John knew his experience didn't make him immune to the risks. Every step demanded his full attention. Still, he also believed leading the group through was the only way to uncover what lay on the other side. And on this day, he had a different plan. One he thought would make things easier for him by widening the space. What he didn't realize was that this plan had a hidden flaw, and soon you'll see why. With tools in hand, he started chipping away at loose rocks, hammering them out to open up more space. Each strike felt like progress toward creating a more comfortable passage, but it only took a single moment for everything to spin out of control. The blows dislodged far more rock than he expected. Part of the cave suddenly gave way. In a matter of seconds, the narrow passage filled with debris, sealing it off completely. On the other side, the 3 women, who seconds earlier had been waiting calmly in a wider chamber, were suddenly trapped in a nightmare. Their only way out was buried under tons of rock. From the outside of the collapse, John stared at the barrier in shock. Now 3 lives rested in his hands. At least he was still outside and able to call for help. In most cave accident stories, people aren't that lucky. He spent about an hour desperately trying to move the rocks, but nothing changed. It became clear that this wasn't something he could fix on his own. Heavy equipment was the only chance. That's when John realized he had no choice. He needed help, and fast. With a heavy feeling of guilt for leaving the women in the dark, he sprinted back out of the cave. Before we continue, if you're enjoying the video so far, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. It really helps me out and motivates me to keep bringing more stories like this. Rescue teams responded quickly. They immediately understood how serious the situation was, and within just a few hours, the cave entrance was crowded with rescuers and technical experts. Their first step was to assess the scene. They examined the blockage, studying the massive pile of rocks sealing the passage. What they found was both encouraging and terrifying. The good news was that there was a tiny opening that allowed for some contact with the trapped women. The bad news was that any attempt to remove the rubble could trigger another collapse, one that might be fatal for everyone. Meanwhile, on the other side, trapped in complete darkness, the three women were enduring some of the most terrifying moments of their lives. They were crammed into a space so small they could barely stand side by side. There was no way to get comfortable. None of them were injured and the air supply was fine, but the tightness made every minute drag like an eternity. Imagine being cut off from the world in pitch black with no idea if you're going to make it out alive. Situations like this are exactly why I always remind myself that cave exploration is optional. At least they weren't alone. And the rescuers were about to face a critical decision that would determine how the story played out. The rescue team made a clear decision. They wouldn't touch the rubble until the corridor was reinforced. Moving rocks without proper support could easily cause another collapse, crushing the women or cutting off any chance of getting them out alive. Through a narrow gap in the blockage, they managed to pass essential supplies to the three women. Food, water, warmer clothes, and even a small camp stove were sent in. These items kept them from slipping into hypothermia and gave them the strength they needed to face the long ordeal ahead. As word of the rescue spread, unexpected help began to arrive. Workers from a nearby silica mine heard about the situation and offered their expertise. Silica is a tough mineral that forms layers of rock strong enough to be challenging even for heavy machinery, and these men dealt with it every day. They knew how to handle rock stability, how to work in tight spaces, and how to use tools and safety techniques to move heavy stone without setting off dangerous chain reactions. They joined the rescuers in the painstaking task of cutting wooden beams and installing supports along the corridor, placing each one with extreme precision. Every beam had to provide maximum reinforcement while still allowing access to the rubble. The work was slow and meticulous, but rushing wasn't an option. At that point, every decision meant the difference between life and death. The miners' hands-on experience, combined with the rescuers' technical knowledge, proved invaluable in building a stable structure that greatly improved the chances of freeing the women without triggering another collapse. Time dragged on as the rescue unfolded. On the surface, family and friends waited anxiously for any news. Inside the cave, the team worked non-stop, knowing that every passing minute mattered. As evening process of clearing the passage began, each stone was pulled out with the utmost caution, and the rescuers kept a constant eye on the walls around them. The job was exhausting and dangerous. They were inching closer to reaching the women, but at the same time, closer to the possibility of another collapse. By about 8:30 that night, more than 11 hours after the cave-in, the rescuers finally broke through. The corridor was open again, providing a way out for the three trapped women. Considering everything they had endured, the women emerged from the cave in surprisingly good shape. After spending more than 11 hours crammed in a space so small, they had managed to stay calm and were physically stable. In the aftermath, experts looked at what went wrong and what went right. It became clear that the collapse was caused by a well-meaning but extremely dangerous attempt to alter the passage. The lesson was obvious. You should never change the natural structure of a cave while people are still inside. The risks are simply too great. Personally, I wouldn't set foot inside a cave, much less try to modify one. If you've made it this far, I'm guessing you enjoyed the story, and if you like this one, you'll probably enjoy another video that's showing up on your screen right now. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.